You know, it's pretty amazing how, in science, sometimes just one single word can bridge two worlds that seem like they have absolutely nothing in common. Today we're going to talk about a word that's just as important in a chemistry lab as it is on a soccer field. Okay, let's just dive right in.
So, here's a question for you. What do a glass of water and an athlete's knee have in common? I know, it sounds like the setup for a really weird joke, right? But the connection is actually super elegant, and it all boils down to one word.
And that word is meniscus. It comes straight from the Greek word for crescent, and that simple curved shape is exactly what ties these two very different things together. You've got the crescent curve of water in a glass, and you've got a crescent of cartilage in your knee. Let's start with the one most of us probably ran into in high school science class.
Yeah, if you've ever used a graduated cylinder or even just a measuring cup, you've seen it. That little dip or curve at the surface of the water. That's the liquid meniscus. And it's not just some random thing. It's the result of a constant, invisible tug-of-war that's happening between molecules.
So this tug-of-war is between two main forces. On one side, you have cohesion. That's the force that makes molecules of the same stuff, like water sticking to water, want to hang out together. But then you've got adhesion, and that's the attraction between different things, like those water molecules wanting to grab onto the side of a glass container.
Now, with water in a glass tube, the adhesion is actually stronger. The water molecules are, believe it or not, more attracted to the glass than they are to each other. So this makes the water kind of climb up the sides, and that's what creates that familiar concave curve. And getting the measurement of that curve right, well, it turns out that can be really important.
I just love this quote from the U.S. Geological Survey. It paints this incredibly dramatic picture of a tiny lab mistake leading to a kid dropping her ice cream cone. It's obviously a bit of an exaggeration, but the point is solid. In science, precision matters. A tiny little error can snowball into much bigger consequences.
But hey, if you think a dropped dessert is a bad outcome, just wait till you hear about the other meniscus. Because this crescent shape isn't just for labs. In fact, you're carrying two of them in each knee as we speak.
That's right. Inside your knee joint, nestled between your thigh bone and your shin bone, you have two C-shaped pieces of cartilage. These are your anatomical menisci. For a long time, scientists actually thought they were just useless leftovers from our evolution. We now know they are absolutely vital. Just think of your meniscus as the ultimate shock absorbers for your body. They take the impact from every single step, every jump, every run. They spread your body weight evenly across the joint so your bones don't grind against each other. And they add stability, kind of like chocks under a wheel, to stop your knee from twisting or sliding in ways it's not supposed to. Simply put, they are essential to keeping you moving. And because they're doing so much heavy lifting, absorbing up to half the entire load on your knee joint, they're also one of the most frequently injured parts of the knee. A sudden, sharp twist, or even just the slow wear and tear of aging can be enough to cause a tear. And this is where the stakes of our two stories just diverge completely. Misreading a liquid meniscus might at worst ruin a chemistry experiment, but tearing your knee meniscus? That can mean chronic pain, a knee that locks up, and down the road, some pretty debilitating arthritis.
These tears aren't all the same either. You can have a vertical tear, which runs along the grain of the cartilage. A radial tear cuts across it, which can basically split the shock absorber in half. But the one that often causes the most trouble is the bucket handle tear. This is where a big piece flips over into the joint, just like the handle of a bucket, and literally jams the knee, causing it to lock up.
So you might be wondering, why can't the body just heal these tears on its own? Well, the answer comes down to something every part of our body needs to heal any kind of injury: blood flow.
See, the meniscus is divided into two very different zones based on blood supply. The outer third, what we call the red zone, has plenty of blood vessels. A tear here actually has a pretty good shot at healing. But the inner two-thirds, the white zone, is what's known as avascular. It has no direct blood flow. A tear here is like an injury in a desert. Without that supply of blood, it just can't repair itself.
This whole red zone versus white zone problem leads doctors to two main surgical choices. For a tear in the white zone that can't heal, a surgeon might just remove the torn piece. That's called a partial meniscectomy. But if the tear is in that blood-rich red zone, a meniscal repair, actually stitching the tissue back together, becomes a real option.
And this leads to a pretty big trade-off when it comes to recovery.
The meniscectomy, where they remove the piece, gets you back on your feet much, much faster. But a repair, while it saves the meniscus, means a really long and careful rehab. We're talking crutches for weeks to give that tissue the time it needs to heal. So the choice often boils down to this: a quick recovery now, or preserving the long-term health of your knee.
So here we are. We've journeyed from a simple glass of water, through the physics of molecules, all the way to the complex biomechanics and surgical options for the human knee.
So after all that, what is the true fundamental link that ties these two stories together? It's not about molecular forces or blood supply. It's something way simpler and honestly a lot more beautiful.
It's just the shape, the crescent. It's a fundamental pattern that nature somehow found useful enough to use for both the invisible dance of water molecules and the heavy-duty mechanics of our own bodies. It's just an amazing reminder that the same simple patterns can echo from the microscopic world all the way up into ourselves. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.